Hey, this is Mark, and this is episode 28 of the Why Are We Still Doing This podcast. I'm really excited about this episode because joining me is my very good friend and award-winning writer, author, stand-up comedian, and rapper, Mr. Seth Brown. I would always be so excited to play with Seth, and he's always someone who I would always stick around for to watch his set. Seth is someone that I spent a lot of time performing stand-up comedy with for what seems like forever ago. And when you perform with the same comics after a while, sometimes you see them go up and you're like, yeah, he's okay. Partially because you get used to their act. But I can honestly say that every time I saw Seth perform, I always got really excited because there was always an element of improvisation in a portion of his set. And I've still never seen anyone improvise as good as Seth. Did I mention Seth is also a rapper? Anyway, Seth and I talk about our early days of stand-up comedy here in the Berkshires and the difficulty of keeping an open mic going, why surprise comedy is the worst kind of comedy and not good for anyone, some of the most dreadful experiences we've had in stand-up, the process of joke writing, why some people think that stand-up comedy can happen anywhere, such as a chain restaurant, why a joke will destroy an audience one night and play to crickets the next, and so much more. This was a lot of fun, and I hope to collaborate in some capacity in the future with Seth. We'll talk about where you can find Seth's work, but for those of you in the Berkshires, here in Western Massachusetts, you can find Seth's bi-weekly column in the Berkshire Eagle, The Pun Also Rises, which comes out every other Thursday. And again, if you'd like to write in, you can do so at whyarewestilldoingthispodcast at gmail.com. Why are we still doing this podcast at gmail.com? And if you'd like to support the show, you can do so at buymeacoffee.com/whyarewestilldoingthis. It's buymeacoffee.com/whyarewestilldoingthis. And I hope you all enjoy this episode. And here is Seth and I. So I just want to start off by saying I have a lot of questions for you, Seth Brown, but I just
Well, thank you, Mark Gigello. I will be sure to answer them.
I just want to say that I do want to talk primarily about our days in stand-up comedy, which to me is such a long time ago, I feel like, and it's kind of a thing of the past for me, but I would always get super excited when I knew that I was going to be on a show with Seth Brown because your stand-up was always really smart, and I loved how if something wasn't going well, your recovery was sometimes better than the bit, that was just told. And you could work the crowd so well too, which is something I was always in awe of, because I was always, early on, I was scared to death, so I was just wanted to plow through my material and be like, all right, thank you.
Which is so funny because literally every time, like when your name comes up, and I was just talking to Charlie Nadler, who I think you know.
Of course, yeah.
So he does all the kind of stuff now. Like anytime I'm like, God, like you got to get on a show with Mark Gigello because you do a show with Mark Gigello, that's who you want to do the comedy show with because he's going to bring an audience of like 50 people who have all come to see him. Even when we were doing improv, I remember we had our improv troupe and we did like a combination improv and comedy show, and we did the improv segment and then then we did the stand up segment, and I was on both segments because I did the ribbit and the stand up, but our improv segment had some people in the audience. And then for the stand-up segment, there was like 30 more people that came to see Mark Gigello.
I was always very lucky and fortunate that I had so many people come out to see me. And what's funny is that the last show that I did was about 2 years ago, which is a show that Charlie got me on.
Oh,
and I show up, and it was at Bright Ideas in North Adams, right next to Mocha. And so I show up, and half of my staff at the school I work in is there, including my principal. My principal is there, and I just show up, and they're sitting there. they didn't tell me they were coming. And I didn't tell them that I had a show. I just kind of put it out there on social media.
The word is out. No, you are the biggest draw in the area, and that's just a fact about the world.
Thank you. But I wanted to talk about early days of stand-up and the experiences that we shared, and we obviously live in an area where it's not easy to find. It was not easy to find a consistent comedy open mic, because when I first started,
it's not now.
No. I was driving over an hour to go to Albany, and I hooked up with the Albany comedy guys, and they were always great. But the very first time I ever did stand up was at the Alley in North Adams, and I remember the very first host of that show was the former mayor of North Adams.
Oh yes, that's right.
His name is Tom, right?
Yep.
And I go up and I proceed to do a stand-up set that had more F-bombs than I think Delirious and Raw combined, because I was so nervous, But but that was like 2009. So my question to you,
such a good room.
No, it was great, and it had probably a year and a half long run before, and that was very typical of, I think, a lot of open mics in Berkshire County, where one would spring up, it'd go for about a year and a half, and then it would fizzle out.
Hard. I mean, that was by far the best one. I tried to run one for many years after that like had 5 different reincarnations at 5 different venues, and it was hard. I eventually gave it up, and then the open mic sort of stopped happening around here. I mean, Tom Lewis was doing them in Pittsfield.
Yep.
For a while, but in terms of stuff here, it was just like the audience for open mics, I could not get the draw. Like, if only I had a Mark Jagello, I think we could have made a go of it.
Well, Tom was incredibly, I'll talk about Tom later, but he was incredibly important with doing the open mics in Lenox, at Rumpy's,
right?
But also Pittsfield. And you did one, was it at, you had one in
I had 5, so we already used 5. Like, we did one at the Purple Pub. We did one at Public. We did one at the Red Herring. I did.
Oh my God! Yeah.
I don't even remember. I did one at the Parlor Cafe.
Yep, that was good. Yeah, that was one I remember doing some jokes about a milkman in front of like 18-year-old college students. This was years ago, and they're like, "What the hell is it?"
Relatable. When you're using a phone booth.
They were like, "What the hell is a milkman?" I said, "All right, kids." So a long time ago, in speaking with that, where did you start doing stand-up? Because we were on so many of the same open mics and shows around the same time, and so just talk to me about some of your memories from.
Wow, where did I start? So my very first stand-up. I mean, and my very first stand-up officially billed as stand-up, not just like doing jokes in front of friends or whatever.
Yeah.
But my very first stand-up, it's like, you are doing a stand-up. This is a stand-up comedy evening, and you have been booked to do 5 minutes of this. Was at a humor writers conference in Ohio. And it was not. I was not like booked as special entertainment. It was just like one of the activities was like, in addition to, there was this big. It's called the Irma Bombeck Humor Conference, and it's a sort of biannual gathering of a bunch of humor writers from all over the country. And one of the activities was like, hey, for all you people who write humor but have never done stand-up comedy and wanted to give it a try, we're going to have an evening where you can sign up and do 5 minutes. And I was like, I got to give this a try. Mm-hmm. So that was my very first stand-up.
So when you did that, because I know some of the comics that I perform in, like Dave Canyon, he's this guy that can just show up with some notes scribbled on a napkin and be like, I think I'm going to do something like this.
Oh my God, no, I used to think of Dave as like the king of crowd work.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
But I know, I absolutely prepare stuff, which is, and I, again, as you sort of talked about earlier, like, I have a background in improv comedy.
Yes.
So I am capable of doing stuff that's all off the cuff, but stand-up is... can be nerve-wracking, and so I very much wanted to have, like, if anything, I often over-prepare for stand-up. Like, even sometimes when was doing like online Zoom shows or mics later in my career, like I would feel like my material was a lot more honed and sort of like timed out and close punchlines
Yes.
than a lot of people, just because I was very like over preparing. Part of it's just because I knew that it was, for me, it was sort of either all or nothing. Like, if I didn't have a tight set that I had worked out and was following exactly, I was just going to forget things because my memory is not good. And for me, like, honestly, half the battle of stand-up was trying to remember what the hell I was going to say.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And for me, it was just, I would always look for the right word sometimes. Like, what is the right word that's going to make this bit? So that could not be something that I do just sort of off the cuff. Like, that's something I am rewriting the joke and making sure that it's my timing is another thing, but again, going back to, there wasn't always a spot for a comedy open mic. There was a lot of general open mics that sometimes comedians would jump on. So, and it never went well. And I can remember going to a general open mic, which was all musicians, and this was very early in my career. And it was at a place in Pittsfield. They served tapas. I think it was Mission, and it was loud, and it was people talking, and I was just telling my jokes over them. It was awful, but it speaks to the bigger issue that is certain people, I think, particularly business owners and promoters, thinking that comedy can go anywhere. Like they think that they can plunk a stand-up comedian in an Applebees and it will go well.
To take a random example, not that any of us have any history with that.
I'd like to segue into your performance at Applebees, and can you tell me about that experience, please?
Yeah, that was, oh my God, what a nightmare. So first of all, as many people have pointed out before, like, the worst kind of comedy is surprise comedy. And like, there's a difference between, we've gone out to eat at a restaurant and it turns out there's some music in the background. Like, you don't always like it if the live music is loud, but you're like, all right, there's some music. That's okay, I guess, at a restaurant.
Yep.
But there are very few people who are just like, let's go out for a nice meal. And so I was like, oh, good, there's a comedian who will be telling jokes for an hour as we try to eat and have a conversation. That's something that we want with our meal.
Yep. And you explained that to me, and I remember I said, how did it go? And you said, well, no one laughed, but at the end, when you did your whole improv rap thing, there was a couple people that kind of like poked their heads up and were like, okay, this is interesting. Could you, where were you situated in the Applebees?
So to set the scene, understand, I think this was all, I think it was actually Tom Lewis who was going to be the one of the MC. Or the host or something. It was all set up by Dan Schilling, who was sort of, when I had started doing comedy in the Berkshires, he was the one who was setting up all the gigs around. Like, around here, it was sort of like, first it was Dan Schilling setting everything up, and then for a couple of years it was Tom Lewis setting everything up around here. And now, Charlie Nadler, as you know, does a lot of the stuff, in this neck of the woods. But when we were starting, it was Dan Schilling was the one who set everything up. And so I was still, like, I'd done the open mic in Ohio, I'd done the Alley a couple times, I'd done open mics. But Dan Schilling was the one who was setting up paid gigs. And so he would say, hey, if you want to come do, I'm going to set you up, you can do comedy this night at this location and you get paid for it. And to me, like, I was, this was 20 years ago. So, we're in our 20s. We're just doing open mics, and now we're going to get paid to do stand up. This is living the dream. It was so exciting.
Exactly.
And so he was going to do like the main feature, and there was going to be some other people on the show, one of whom turned out to be Tom Lewis, who I didn't know at the time. That was the first time I met him, I believe.
Yeah.
And so I had prepared my 20 minutes, which was what I was supposed to do. And I got there. There had been, I forget if like Dan was in like an accident or had like but he had some catastrophe.
I remember he wasn't there. Yeah.
And so he wasn't there. And some of the other people who were supposed to be there were also not there. So I think eventually it was Tom, but mostly it was a 2-hour night of comedy that was supposed to be 5 or 6 comedians, and it was instead me.
Oh my God.
And it was me who had prepared 20 minutes of comedy and now had to fill 2 hours.
Oh, and there wasn't even like a sandwich board saying comedy tonight, right?
No,
Like,
there was
nothing.
absolutely no indication to any of the people at the restaurant that there would be comedy. And indeed, my 2 hours of comedy came, if it came as an unpleasant surprise to me, I can only assume it was even a more unpleasant surprise to them. As you know, again, they were just going out for a nice meal. Well, not a nice meal, but they were going out for a meal at Applebees.
Yeah.
And, you know, they didn't ask for comedy.
No.
But I didn't know that when I had booked the show. I was just like, oh, I'm going to be paid to do comedy. This is amazing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I got there and I did my 20 minutes of material that I had prepared. And then I did another 20, 30 minutes of material that I hadn't prepared, but it was, some jokes that I had done before at open mics.
Yep.
And then I did about 20 minutes of sort of riffing, attempting crowd work. I believe I tried very briefly and it just did not go well. I am not a I was like, all right, we're not gonna do too much of the crowd work right now. And then I was like, all right, I know from my improv stuff, like at least I can rely on the rapping. So I did the rapping, and I felt like with that done, that was a great place to stop.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just thinking.
So at least I can leave on something that is not terrible. And people were like, all right, that was not terrible. And then that was it.
Yeah. No, because I mean, it could have been much worse for them in the fact there could have been someone who went up there their very first time ever doing stand-up comedy.
Sure, someone's just like dropping F-bombs left and right.
Me, yeah. Exactly. But you obviously you handled it like a pro, and
I don't know that a pro would be doing the show at Applebee's for the unannounced audience.
No,
I handled it like a workman of comedy who is being paid to have people hopefully not have a terrible time.
And it was very much the last time I went to Applebee's was after a show I had in Pittsfield about 4 years ago, and my wife and I went, and it was pretty much the only place in Pittsfield to get a drink that evening. And so Applebee's has pretty much every demographic you could imagine. There's the teenage kids after like a dance. There's the construction workers. There's the thugs. There's like the one lonely guy at the bar. So you have
it's like literally a cross section of everyone except for people who like good food.
yeah. And so, when you have a comedy show, per se, let's say Bill Burr's coming to town. Bill Burr's fans are going to be there, but obviously when you go to Applebee's, you're getting you're getting a platter of different kinds of people. So, but I have one that I think might be at Applebee's, and I don't know if you'd ever heard this story, but Rick Conte had told me.
I love Rick Conte.
Rick Conte had told me once that he was approached by someone to do stand-up at a Macy's store, and now this. This, I think it was like a grand reopening after a remodel or some big like hokey sales promotion where they had entertainers around the store. Most likely, I don't know, some guy playing a guitar probably. Sure. I cannot imagine. Like, I'm trying to comprehend what doing stand-up in a Macy's would be like. Like, are they setting me up next to the riser in the fitting room and I'm just like Don Rickles just roasting everyone about their outfit choices as they're going in or out? Like, or you're near the checkout, and you're just like...
Are they inflating you and you're in a parade? Yeah.
You're just like you're at the checkout, like, no, don't leave. You haven't heard the punchline yet. And they're like, I know, I paid. I want to leave the store, Like, I don't know why anyone would think it apart.
Yeah, surprise comedy. Because, again, I very few people usually are like, oh, I really want to see some comedy tonight. Let's go to Macy's.
I don't remember who it was, but like I say, it's just like, where are you playing this weekend? Oh, I'm at the, Comedy Cellar. You? Oh, Macy's, but, so post-COVID, what is stand-up like for you these days, and how has that affected it? Because I obviously, things slowed down for me when I had children. My children are growing up, and I really didn't do much,
Post-COVID, my stand-up doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
I took a much more hyper extreme cautionary approach to COVID and have been sort of avoiding being unmasked in indoor spaces since 2020.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't think that my comedy Like, I can't, I mean, you know, you can hear me in a mask, but you need the facial expressions. Like, I'm just not going to try to do stand up without that. So I did a couple Zoom shows that went great. I was really sad that Zoom comedy stopped being a thing pretty fast as soon as people could see it in real life. Because on the one hand, like, is it a much better experience being in person? Of course it is. But is it more convenient for me personally to do it from my desk, to have my material in front of me that I don't have to memorize and not have to go anywhere? It was a dream. I enjoyed the 2 Zoom comedy shows that I did, and you know, they went very well, which is surprising because, you know, Zoom has, again, it's not as good as being there in person, but I was glad how they went. But no, basically since COVID hit, I have not done any in-person stand-up. I did 2 to 3 Zoom shows, and other than that, it's just been, I'm focusing on the column and the newsletter, and that's pretty much it for now.
I remember you had posted something. You had made a comment on one of my last shows about my wife and I were talking about COVID and how her father-in-law, my father-in-law had passed away, and you had mentioned you had also someone that you had lost during COVID, and that was one of those things where people don't understand that so many people obviously passed away during that time, and unless you had someone that passed away from COVID, you really can't. Really,
well, it's so weird, and I realize this is taking us slightly off topic, so I'll try to bring us back after a few minutes. But
that's fine.
Like the way that we as sort of as a collective country have decided, like, all right, so we're gonna take you know, a few thousand people, you know, 9/11 is the most important thing in the world. Like, it's obviously a tragedy. It's terrible. Mm-hmm. Thousands of people died. But COVID in the first year was killing that many people every week. We were losing a 9/11 worth of people every week. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, we decided that we had to, like, entirely remake the country and our security systems, and you can't wear your shoes at the airport or bring your water bottle on the plane, or like the entire country has to be reformed and replaced due to that. But like the idea of like, could you guys like wear a mask maybe for a little while? Everyone's like, this is tyranny. We can't possibly make any changes at all just because 1 million people have died from this, and question mark number million, many more are going to be seriously ill and have long COVID. And like, you know, that's a choice. Like, we as a country sort of made a choice. And that choice annoys me. And so, like many other things, the choice was made sort of without people asking for my input. So I made my own choices, and like the country went on doing their thing, but I continue to not be in indoor places without wearing a mask. Yeah. And I continue to wear my shoes and not go on airplanes because I'm annoyed at that also.
Well, actually, so just to let you know, you don't have to take your shoes off anymore. I don't know what that has changed. I don't know what changed, but I know, like, as someone that I fly maybe a couple times a year, that was always like my least favorite part of getting on, because, and I think I talked about that in one of my episodes, how like I always wondered why I was so stressed at the airport, even though I knew that I was going somewhere where I'd been 1,000 times, but it was TSA that always stressed me out, because it's like there's always they're hurrying you up. You got to take your shoes off.
I hated it so much, and I was pulled aside every time because like I don't know if it's just my beard or the fact that I'm projecting hatred spiritually, but like I was pulled aside every single time.
And patted down extra?
Yeah, patted down, put in the air machine, like the whole 9 yards. It was always like, mail assist, special squad, come over here. Because, like, I don't know if just like my beard screams terrorist or like...
Well, I mean...
and I know that this was a show about bombing, you said, but that's a totally different sort of thing.
So I don't think we're getting off topic here, because this is my show. I like to poke fun.
I was trying to segue with the bombing thing.
Well, yes, I appreciate that. But what I was saying is, like, I like to talk about real stuff. Like, people have these situations that obviously really suck, and your life has sort of changed a lot for since then. So, I totally respect your decision to do that. But obviously, I'm sure that it's not easy. So.
No, and like, look, does it have downsides? Like, have I lost all my friends and no one talks to me anymore? Sure. But I still get invited on podcasts occasionally, so I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, no, absolutely. Now the Zoom comedy shows, I never did those, but who sort of facilitated that? Was that something you set up on your own, or?
Oh no, I don't set anything up anymore. I did I honestly like I said, like I did that series of open mics for a while, and then finally I was just like, I hit my breaking point and I was like, I've tried 5 open mics, this is not working. I don't like trying to always wrangle things. I don't like the logistics. I don't like the marketing. I am never running anything again.
Sure.
So I have stuck with that, and I have continued to do nothing. And so the open mics I did, one was actually based in England, and it was called the UK Pun Off, and it was run by a guy who's done a bunch of fringe comedy shows out there and does like around the world in 80 puns or whatever. And so it was sort of a pun themed.
I mean, that sounds right up your alley.
Yeah, it was. As you might suspect, talk about open mics I overwrote for. Like I like when I went to that one, like everyone else did their set, and I was like, all right, mine is a lot more like polished and overworked than these. But like it was fun. I wrote like a good set that was heavy pun filled, which I normally don't do for like I have puns obviously on my stand up, but. They're usually sprinkled throughout the set, whereas this was sort of just like a relentless 5 minutes of like nonstop puns, which was very fun for me, and maybe even an audience member. And then for the other one, the shows, Charlie Nadler set up one with what is the name of it? The Berkshire, some acronym that's Berkshire Council of People Who Are Good and Help People, or I don't even know.
Council on Aging?
No, I want to see BCRC possibly.
Berkshire County ARC?
I don't know what it stands for. Whatever it was.
Yeah, there's too many acronyms. Yeah.
It was good. It was a show that was like a local group, and it was like me and Charlie Nadler, and I don't even know if there was another person. It may have just been the two of us, but we we each did like 20 minutes maybe 20 and yeah. Oh no, maybe I think there was a third person. I can't remember.
Did people leave their mics on so you could hear their laughter, or you know what I mean?
I don't remember. I think maybe not.
Yeah.
I think you could see them. You could definitely see them, and sometimes it was on, but it was good. Like I was, I had not done Zoom comedy shows before, so I was definitely a little nervous about it because I was like,
yeah.
Can you do comedy on Zoom? Like, doesn't that just like kill comedy?
Exactly.
But I think, again, like in comparison to some of those shows we were talking about, the fact that, for example, the people wanted to be there and see a comedy show was a huge benefit. Mm-hmm. And then, we did material that we had practiced and honed and whatever, and sort of knew was good. And it was the right crowd because it was, one of these organizations that had like a pro-social artsy crowd, which is very much like my kind of crowd. Like finding the right audience is so important. And I don't know if this is, segueing to something else that you wanted to talk about or didn't, but I just,
No. I actually, it does. I think one of the most fascinating things about comedy is how a bit can just totally destroy an audience one night. Then the very next night, in front of a different crowd, can just die a slow death. And 100%. I want to talk about a bit that you had years ago about the 12 Days of Christmas.
Oh my God!
That I absolutely
I wrote that down. Literally, I said I have to remember to talk about this on Mark's podcast when he's talking about failure.
I freaking love that one. I had a very short 12 Days of Christmas, but you went through the whole thing, and I remember I saw firsthand that bit kill one night, and then the next weekend,
literally the next night.
Was it the next night? Yeah. It was nothing but crickets, and I'm off stage watching this, going, "How the hell is this happening? Like this just killed last night, and it might have been the same place." And I was very similar to the acronym bit that Rick Conte would do.
Oh, I love that.
I love that bit. A lot of the nights people laugh the whole way through. Then all of a sudden,
that is such a well written bit.
It is.
Rick is really good at taking one premise and just like really like finding everything you can do with it and just like making a whole like meaty bit out of it.
Mm-hmm. And so again,
like I said, I think having an artsy crowd for me is part of it, because I think actually last, and there's too many things, my mind's going in like 5 directions. The other month I had a newsletter about playing to the table laughing, and you had commented saying that with your early in your comedy, you would sort of try to please everyone.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I think that often the best material is the stuff that takes more risks and is more conceptual, and it's basically double or nothing, right? Like you're inviting the audience to come with you on a journey, and if they will join you and take that journey, it's going to be magical and hilarious and more fun for everyone.
Yep.
But if they won't, then they won't. And it's like, sometimes that's how it is. And I always, admire comics who are, they're doing their thing, and like when it works, it's hilarious because it's not like every other thing.
Exactly.
Like Ed, who used to do the comedy around here, like he
Ed
was
Smythe?
always Ed Smythe.
Yeah.
Like he was always doing his own thing, and it was conceptual, and he committed to it 150%.
Absolutely.
And it wouldn't always land, but when people loved it, they were delighted because it was something different, and they did his own thing.
Yes.
So I had this 12 Days of Christmas bit, which was basically, I can't do it now because it's been years, but it's basically from the point of view of, the woman who's just like thanking a guy for gifts, increasingly trepidatiously as it keeps being birds. It's like, wow, thanks, another bird.
That was part of. I was like, what am I going to do with all these birds? And then we have all these people to help milk the cows, and I can't remember what it was, but no.
Yeah, it's like geese. It's like 2 turtles, 3 French hens, more birds. Great, it's so nice of you, and then 5 golden rings. Finally, thank you so much. And then like the next day, it's like, and now swans. God damn it! But so it's like that. If I did this whole like 5-minute conceptual set that like invites the audience to come along, and I did it on a Friday night at Public Eat and Drink in North Adams, which has the crowd was artsy. Sort of smart artsy crowd, some MCLA students, and very much my kind of crowd.
Just to clarify, they had their own separate room away from the restaurant.
It wasn't in the main part of the restaurant. People who were in the back room all came because specifically they wanted to be in that room hearing comedy.
Exactly. Yep.
But it was like, my crowds usually like. I do better with like an artsy crowd, and so that bit absolutely killed that night. I had people coming up to me after that open mic saying that was one of the best like bits that they'd heard in a long time. People loved it, absolutely killed. The very next night, I'm at a paid show in Pittsfield at a bar.
It was it was where the hangar is now in Pittsfield. Was it Chameleons? Was that it?
It could have been Chameleons.
Yeah,
it was a hosted show by I think Kim DeShields was the host, and she'd never met me. I never think I came up and started doing the bit. I did not even get through it. She was giving me the signal to get off the stage and leave.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like that's how bad it was going.
Okay. So not because you ran out of time, but it was just it was
just like. I had gotten like 2 minutes in, and she was just like, this is dying on the vine, and it's bringing down the vibe.
So that was me in New York City one time when I did stand up New York, and I had a bit about I would go through all these different kinds of beers and what kind of beer person drinks.
What they
that
say
kind
about
of beer.
you, yeah.
And a lot of that was very like small town kind of redneck humor. And
I remember that bit because that played so well here when I saw you do it.
No, a lot of people liked it, but when I did it in New York City, people were like, I don't get it. And I remember just like it's one of those things you're just trudging through, and you're like, you have that out of body experience where you're like, this is not going well. And
it's so weird. It's so weird because the material is good because you've literally done the exact same jokes, even with your practiced cadence, in front of crowds, and they ate it up.
Yeah, and so I remember getting off stage, and I was so mad, but it was one of those. It was the first time I'd ever done New York City, and I was like, okay. I've learned now. It took me a while to be like, it's okay. This is a learning experience. But, And the other thing with crowds, I was just thinking about being in a place. I remember playing at one of the theaters, the small theater where we do the improv troupe and the comedy show. I remember one of those situations where I'm getting roaring laughter. However, the very first row is all people not laughing, and they're the only ones that I can see because of like the spotlight. And even though I can hear the roaring laughter, I'm like so focused on this front row of just, older people just not laughing. And I'm like, why are you sitting here? Why are you sitting here?
Yeah, no, that's why I say you gotta focus on the table laughing.
I know. But speaking of other people's acts, I was just thinking about how, like, after you play with certain comics for so long, you know their acts so well. And I don't know if you do this, but I would come home and I would do like Rick's act for my wife. I would do some of your stuff. Like, I would always do this bit that Rick did about how his parents were getting a divorce, and he's like, yeah,
of course they're fighting over custody.
Yeah, she's keeping him out till 6:30 at night, like stuff like that. And it was just so funny, and we would just laugh about it.
I think when you work with another comic, there's some jokes of theirs you just love.
I love them. Yeah.
Literally last week, Debbie and I were talking about a joke of Rick Connidy's, where he's
That's awesome.
I would just watch my neighbor, and he just does nothing but stare out the window for hours. And it's such a good subtle joke. Yeah. And I think a lot of times he would just do it and people just did not get it.
No.
But Debbie just found it hilarious, and we loved that joke.
Yeah. There were so many. There's one that he did. It was along the lines of his parents getting divorced, and she said, hi, nice to meet you. And I said, you can't tell me what to do. You're not my real mom. It's just like little stuff like that. But going back to bombing, sure. I wanted to ask you about the worst time that you did bomb, and I'm wondering if the Applebees gig was that, or was there another time where it was just...
I mean, I don't think there's like between the Applebees and the Chameleons, because like they're a different kind of bombing, right? Because the Applebees was sort of like the worst sort of long-term experience. It was just like, this is just extending for literally like over an hour, and no one wants this. There's not a person in that room who wants it to be going how it is going, including me.
But they were being they were being polite about it. They weren't like booing you. They were.
Polite may not even be the right word. They were just trying to eat their food. Like, they didn't ask for this. But I think like literally not a single person in the room wants me to be there, including me. So that's one type of bombing.
Oh my God, yeah.
But the Chameleons was sort of the inverse, where it's like, I have material that I know has worked.
Yep. And
I have a room full of people that hate it, and a host who wants me to get off the stage. So that's also a type of bombing. I guess the other type of bombing, the bomb that sticks out in my mind is the show in Otis.
I've heard about this one.
Yeah, I did another show booked by Dan Schilling, who he could work a crowd beforehand, because this was a crowd that I thought like, there's no salvaging this crowd. Like this crowd is not here for comedy. Like, they are here to drink. And even though there's a comedy show announced, like, they're just like talking over, like loudly talking over the entire, because it's in like a crowded bar. And so they're loudly talking over the entire set. And I saw, speaking of other people's jokes, Eric Notke, who used to have a joke, like his one joke that I thought was just hilarious and always killed, that I thought was just so funny. He was talking about, he would do a trivia thing. And it was a trivia question of like, what's the fourth book of the Bible? And he's like, oh, I think I know this one. Jesus Christ and the Goblet of Fire.
Yes, I love that one.
It's such a good joke.
That's a great joke.
He did that joke to dead silence, and I was like, that's it. This audience is going to be a complete, like, there is no way that any of us can get any laughs out of this audience. And then Dan Schilling, who had spent the evening like walking around greeting everyone and talking to them, like went up and did his act, and everyone quieted down and watched it and laughed uproariously. He owned the room. It's just like, sometimes that happens.
I feel like with that joke that Eric did about the Goblet of Fire, that's one where I could see a lot of comedians doing their best joke and then just totally going off on the crowd, like how Bill Burr did in the Philadelphia thing. You see the Bill Burr, he's totally like, fuck this crowd. I could see a lot of comics doing that, but no, I remember hearing about that. Yeah. And I've been asked to do many shows. I've turned down shows where I'm just like, I know this is not the right place.
That's the sweetest, is when you get to that level of success, even not as a comic, just like as a person with money, like the ability to say, this is going to be very bad, and you know what? I'm going to not do it. Like, what a great position to be in.
I mean, I've made it to a point where I'm financially well off and can turn down gigs. But no, it was a wonderful thing. It was very much like they would say, come do at this restaurant or whatever, or at this pub, and I say, well, for me, this is kind of what I envisioned for having a comedy show, and they would just keep like pressing me. I'm like, no, like. I'm saying no is no, okay? No is no. Just respect my no, please. But you have incredible improv skills, obviously. The ability to rap. And if you don't mind, I'd like to tell sort of the folks at home about your closer, if that's okay. Can I just...
Sure.
Okay. So at the end of your set, you would ask the audience for a topic, and someone would shout out something like, I don't know, pickleball, and from there you'd somehow craft.
I would do a joke, and I'd be like, "All right, so a pickleball walks into a bar
with that topic," right. And it was always hilarious.
And the bartender says, "We don't serve pickle bars here," and the pickleball says, "Hey, what kind of a racket is this?"
Oh my God, I love it! Yeah, I love it.
So that's just any topic. I would get that, and I would do the bar joke, and then I'd ask for a different topic, and I would do the same exact setup of joke, like.
Yep. And that made my day. Oh my God, that was so awesome hearing that. Sorry, I was just like geeking out a little bit. But it was always hilarious because it was either really, really smart or so incredibly corny that you couldn't help but laugh. And for me, and you do this twice before saying, now these aren't good topics for jokes, but better topics for a rap, and then you'd completely blow everyone away. And I don't know if you remember, and so then you'd put together this like minute and a half long rap, and you brought a CD with you.
Yep, I had my little instrumental music that I either have someone cue up in the sound booth or just press it on a boombox if I didn't have the sound booth.
I don't know if you remember this, but I actually did a very crude beatboxing at Rumpy's once. Do you remember that?
Oh my God, the Rumpy's. That was speaking of shows I bombed. I forgot about Rumpy's.
I was off in the corner and all of a sudden I start going, doing that, and everyone kind of looked my way as like, what? And then you just you rapped over my really bad beatboxing, but it was always incredible. So my question, to people that might have seen that or don't understand sort of the mechanics of improv or maybe coming up with something like that on the spot is, how do you do that? And what is the science? And is there one to sort of thinking on your feet that quickly,
Oh my God. All right. So there's a couple questions in there. What is the science? I can confidently answer, I don't know. I'm not a scientist.
I figured that was going to be the answer.
Yeah. Sorry to disappoint. People think of me as smart occasionally, but certainly when it comes to science, I do not have knowledge. I just have, I read things sometimes.
Okay.
So how do I do it? I do have, like I said, I have the years of training in improv comedy, which is coming up with stuff fast. But then also the freestyle rapping specifically was something I obsessively practiced. Like when I started getting into rap, I wanted to freestyle and I was not particularly good at it. And I decided that I really wanted to be good at it. And I started what I had called, at the time, a group called the Skyphers, which is a portmanteau, I love portmanteaus, of Skype and a cipher, or cipher being a freestyle circle. So it was me and two other friends. I say friends. I don't know their real names. It was Lucid and TG, and there was two other people I had met on the Nerdcore rap forums. And we, for a few months, met literally every night online and
on Skype.
Yeah. And practiced freestyling for 1 to 2 hours every night for months.
Wow.
And it was an obsession for me because I was like, freestyling is cool and I want to be better at it. And this would have been, God, I don't even know, 2005 maybe?
Yeah.
But it was just something that I always wanted to be good at, and I put in the frickin' work.
Where else?
The answer to how you get good at something is just a lot of practice.
Where else have you done that other than stand-up shows? Have you done it elsewhere?
Well, I mean, I've done occasional rap shows, but then also like I had a not terribly successful mini career as a nerdcore rapper. So I never even released an album, but I was on various Rhyme Torrents compilations albums and put out a music video about Dungeons and Dragons and.
Oh my God! Do you have any? So do you know where you can find any of those?
Yeah. I mean, I can send you a link to the music video about Dungeons and Dragons. If
Holy cow!
Or one of my rap song about cheese is probably my best known rap song.
Okay.
I will send links to these so both both of the listeners who tuned in to hear me. No, who am I kidding? You're Mark Gigello. We have lots of listeners. The two people is from my newsletter. Both readers of my newsletter will appreciate that I'm on the podcast. But no, I will send you. I'll send you a link to my most popular song and my music video, and that'll be plenty of my rapping. I'm sure.
That's amazing. When you said something about you did something about cheese, I feel like that sounds very Tom Greenish.
I when I heard his rapping, I was amused by it. I thought it was fun. And so I like that. But yeah, so I did the rapping sort of. That's how I really got into the rapping, was on the nerdy side. There was like a whole nerdcore thing, and I ended up in Wired magazine for like being one of the earlier nerdcore rappers when it blew up, and then immediately was hated by everyone, and then sort of the scene moved on. I don't do so much of that anymore, but Mega Ran, who was one of the also early nerdcore rappers, rapped about some Mega Man stuff, as you might guess from his name. But also had an album called Black Materia, about a bunch of albums. His children's album was just nominated for a Grammy this year.
Oh my God!
So
wow.
The nerdcore rap has blown up, and it's doing well. I did not blow up or do well. I continued staying at home and writing my column. But yeah, I did the rapping on the nerdcore scene, and I even went in 2009 to Nerdapalooza, which was the nerd rap convention in Florida. And honest to God, my favorite thing, like, they had a bunch of famous, groups inside on the stage, and I even had like a tiny little bit of time on the stage to do one song. But by far the most fun I had at that Nerdapalooza was just hanging out in the parking lot, freestyling in a circle with other rappers.
Wow. That's awesome.
Just kicking it. It was, yeah, I loved it. I mean, the freestyling for me was a labor of love. Certainly I did not earn money. Even my stand-up career was more lucrative than my freestyle rapping career, or my rapping career in general. But I loved the freestyling with people. It was the best.
Yeah. Now Nerdapalooza, in terms of on the nerd meter, is that above a Comic-Con, or is that sort of par for because I did a show about a Comic-Con. I went to my first Comic-Con last year, and I was just
I remember. I dug that episode because that's very much my ethos of like people should enjoy what they enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Castigated for it. No, I think so. Look, like,
it's not a real question. I was just you don't have to analyze that, but. So
all right, well, right. Well, I won't give you a
real if you had an answer, go ahead. Then it's fine.
No, I was just gonna say that I think it's more niche. The short answer is that Nerdapalooza is more niche. Like Comic-Con, like much as it's like, all right, not everyone is going to be into the whole Comic-Con thing. Yeah, but you're still going to get millions of people who want to go to a Comic-Con and see the the celebrities, the people dressing up or whatever, and be part of the thing. Because like Marvel movies are very big now. Everyone loves that sort of stuff. But like, how many people want to go hear like a nerdy rapper or 30 nerdy rappers? Like that's a much smaller number. So it's niche. It's very niche.
Okay, so not a real science behind some of the freestyle, but in terms of like your writing and how you write jokes when you did stand up, that for me that process I love, because as I talked about before, I just love finding the right word that's going to make or break this punchline or this part of the joke. It's like the pacing, the timing are all incredibly important.
Yeah.
So do you have a certain process of when you're writing a joke, or is it just simple as writing down your thoughts, rewriting?
God, I mean, it's never simple, but I mean, it's. I wouldn't say I have a process just because it's so different every time. Like, I think there is some craftsmanship where you're like, all right, there should really be a callback at the end to tie things up, because like I was just talking about this with Charlie Nadler the other week, saying like, the callback is to me a sign of craftsmanship. Like it shows that like, hey, this is not just a bunch of stuff that someone just thought and wrote down and threw at you. The callback says, hey, this was all planned. This is an arc. This is something that I thought about and put together, and I want it to be cohesive. And so to me, it's like the callback is a sign of craftsmanship and love and appreciation for your audience. And
Absolutely.
so, like, I think I love them in my stand-up sets. I do them in my columns. The column I just finished writing for this coming Thursday, I put a callback at the end, and then even like when I'm doing, I'm freelance write, I do best man speeches for people, and like when I'm doing best man speeches for a client, like I'll always, if I can, like I'll put in the callbacks because I feel like that's the craftsmanship where it's like,
That's awesome. I didn't. Oh wow. So people will reach out to you about doing best man speeches, stuff like that. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I wish more people would because, as I mentioned, I hate marketing myself. So I'm very bad at that.
I know how it is. Yeah,
but yeah, I've been doing freelance writing is sort of my main gig at this point, and so I do all sorts of speech writing. But around this time of year, sometimes there's best man speeches, and I've done enough of those. Like my little online profile on Upwork or whatever has perfect ratings for best man speeches. So occasionally people find me.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's fun. I love doing them as a way to add some positivity to a world that needs it, and save someone from bringing up the thing they really shouldn't, or giving a boring or embarrassing speech, and instead get something that's like still very personal but also very crafted and funnier than they were going to be, and like it all works.
Oh, absolutely, because a lot of them are pretty bad, but
but it's the softest audience you'll ever have.
Yeah, exactly. Talking about your column, so you've been writing for the Eagle for quite a while now, but it was initially for the North Adams Transcript.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Been 20 odd years ago.
Wow.
I think and it is sort of a different, like I'd almost say it started in college, but it was different then, because I had a little column called like my in the college paper, and then when I graduated I had like a column for like a year maybe in the Berkshire Advocate called Land of the Rising Pun. And then that got dropped. And then about a year later, I started my column, and this would have been like, I don't know, 2004 maybe? Or, yeah. I started my column for the North Adams Transcript, The Pun Also Rises. And that's the column that I've been writing. Like I wrote it for however many years, I think maybe a decade, for the Transcript, and then when the Transcript got eaten by the Eagle, it moved to the Eagle, and I've been writing it for the Eagle ever since, and it's now been like 20 odd years. And
no, that's I think where you are writing that, it's kind of like me doing my podcast in terms of my creative outlets, because I'm not I don't do stand up really anymore. I don't obviously have the time to go and travel and do that, so I just a year or so ago, I'm like, I don't know, it just kind of hit me one day. I was like, why don't I just do a podcast? That's the way to get.
It's so nice to have an outlet. I mean, for me, I think honestly, my newsletter is more that for me than my column, because the column is still like made to be not to say that this is the way your podcast doesn't, but for me, it's like my column is still like trying to appeal to a mass audience, whereas my newsletter is very much like me being my 3 raccoons in a trench coat self, where I just like completely unhinged and talking about whatever I want to talk about for whatever length I want to talk about it. Which, as I said, is why it has 2 subscribers. But it's good to have an outlet, and I think it's somewhere that you can come out and say all the ridiculous stuff. And craft it.
No, absolutely. I think I try to make my podcast, again, funny, but also try.
I'm sorry for coming on and ruining that for you. I really meant to.
You have been amazing on the show. So, but I wanted to talk about. I just got a couple other things I wanted to touch base on before we go. Who are some of your favorite comedians?
Oh, wonderful question. Who do I like? For a while, it was Eddie Izzard was right on top.
Oh, he's hilarious. Yeah.
I guess now Susie Eddie Izzard or whatnot. But this, 10, 15 years ago, like that was to me like the Dress to Kill and the Do You Have a Flag
Dress
bit
to Kill.
was just
Yep.
absolutely amazing. In recent years, I would say probably Maria Bamford is amazing. I got to see her live like a year or 2 before COVID hit, and she was so good. She's just, and again, talk about people who are like, she takes risks and, you know, invites the audience along for the ride, and it's not going to appeal to everyone, but man, it's just like, yep. Her stuff is just good and authentic, and I love it. It's great. And then you want to talk about, you know, atypical comedy. Emo Phillips is probably my favorite. He's just, you know, I was a fan of his since like the Hasty Pudding Theater special, like way back in the 80s. But he's just the master of pulling out the rug in the middle of a joke and then giving you the unexpected ending. And
I'll be honest. I don't know too much about
Emo Phillips.
No. I guess man. I'm gonna have to.
If you are on like Blue Sky or whatever, you can follow him there. But okay. I will. Let me. You know what? I will even find my favorite joke. A joke of his that is just, well, this is a long joke of his, but I'll put it in the there's show notes, right? There's probably show notes.
Yeah. No, there are. Yeah.
All right. So I will add a link to probably his most famous joke, which is like a 4-minute joke. But it's good. But no, he's I got to see him also. That would probably, when I'd say Emo Phillips is probably the best comedy show I ever saw. And I even saw when I was young, I saw George Carlin in theater in the round.
Oh.
And like he was really good, but like a decade ago, Debbie and I went to see Emo Phillips at the Iron Horse Theater.
In Northampton, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I saw Carlin about a month before he passed.
Oh, wow.
I was really lucky to see him.
That's such a great, intimate venue.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
No.
I wouldn't have imagined Carlin would be at such a small venue.
No, I'm sorry. It was the
Calvin.
The Calvin.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the Calvin.
Yeah, I mean the Calvin's still, you know, small for Carlin, but yeah, but the Iron Horses, they're little like really small venues, and it's like it's so intimate, and it was like it just packed to the gills, and like I had hurt myself from laughing. Like Emo Phillips was just hilarious because all his jokes they pull the rug out from under you mid sentence. I guess one example is, you know, one of his lines is, and again I won't do it justice, but he's like, you know, I used to love to go to the playground and see, you know, the little boys and girls jump up and down and scream because they don't know I'm using blanks. That kind of stuff, like so many of his jokes, like he delivers them very deadpan, mm-hmm. and they do not go where you think they're gonna go, and it's just he's so good.
Kind of like Stephen Wright a little bit.
Yeah. Although, I mean, yes, but Stephen Wright often has more one-liners, and emos often have more of like a story,
sure,
to them. Yeah. But oh my God, he's so good, and I feel like whatever I send won't do justice to how good he is. But
it's okay.
But he's great. How about you? Who are your favorite
stand-ups? Well, for me, I mean, Carlin was always one. But growing up, I mean, I listened to Bill Cosby tapes like all the time, and I've seen Bill Cosby twice in my life.
No, I saw him a few years out of college.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
I saw him when I was 10 years old, maybe 10. It was right around when the movie Ghost Dad came out. Do you remember Ghost Dad?
Sure.
And he was wearing a Ghost Dad t-shirt, and it was at this really small theater in New York somewhere. And then I saw him maybe 2009, and it was at Symphony Hall in Springfield again. But Seinfeld, I've always loved Seinfeld. Just, you know.
No, Seinfeld's, I mean, people poo-poo him now, but he was great.
Oh, yeah.
He, like, revitalized the whole industry. Like.
Absolutely. I mean, one of my probably more unknown comics that I really love was Pablo Francisco. Do you know him?
I don't.
He does like he's incredibly like high energy, which is not usually my thing, but he just like he'll do impressions. He does like the movie guy voice. He's really funny. I love Bill Burr. Robin Williams.
I mean, I almost don't even think of him as a stand-up.
I know
that's like a frenetic improv legend. Like
exactly. You know, my top three I usually say Carlin, Seinfeld, and I don't know, my third one. It's hard to say, but I mean, I've read all of Carlin's books, you
Yep,
know,
I
and
got brain droppings in my bathroom still.
yep, it's just incredible, and I think Carlin would have a field day with what's going on in the world today.
Oh my god! I mean, he talked about half of it. 20.
He did.
I know you've commented on those posts. Like every once in a while, I'll be like, I was reading this Carlin book from 15 years ago, or watching
Exactly.
this from 20 years ago, and it's super relevant to today.
30 years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us where we can find you, because I
Why? Who's looking for me?
well,
No.
I was looking on Amazon at your books, and there were some books I was like, oh my god, I didn't know. So one of the books.
Well, I may not have, because some of them, two of the books that are listed under me are some other Seth Brown that I didn't write. So
okay, well, one of them one of them is about how to play a game.
Oh yes, that's me.
That's you, okay? Because I was telling
the little book of mahjong is me. It's not a funny book, so don't pick it up if you're interested in having a good time.
Because I was telling my wife about this today. She's like, mahjong. I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, I used to play that all the time. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't know if I've ever played that, but when did you write that? How long ago was that?
I don't know. That was like maybe 10 years ago now, maybe less. I bet I can look it up. That's dumb. No, it was one of those things where they came to me, as so many of my books have been. It's not that I set out to write this thing. It's someone's like, we need someone to write this book. And as it turns out, during my freelance writing days, there was a time when I was doing some freelancing for the board game section of about.com. And I had written some quick guides of like, here's how to play this game, here's how to play that game, or here's some basic strategy for gin rummy or mahjong. And someone had found one of these articles that I'd written, I guess, when they Googled how to play mahjong, and they were like, I wonder if this person would like to write us a book. And so and this says 2018, and that's the pub date, so I presume they reached out in 2017. So yeah, probably about a decade ago. And they reached out and they were like, would you like to write a book about how to play mahjong and strategy? And I was like, okay.
Wow. Okay. So they came to you and okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, like, I had another idea for a book about board games that I'd meant to write forever, and I have not been able to find an agent for it or a publisher for it. And I'm also, at this point in my career, not excited to put in the effort to write a whole book that no one's going to pay me for or read. And so I haven't written it, but one day, I one day hope to write about more varied board games. But the games I want to write about are like obscure Euro games that maybe 5 people have played and only 7 people have heard of. So the audience is not there like it is for a game for mahjong, which is why my book lives in my head and this book lives on Amazon.
Okay, well, I see you have some other books on there. You have is there a book of poems? Is that you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
That's me. So the two there, the poems is me. That the disapproval of my toaster is the title of one of the poems and the title of the book. And this is a collection of poems that I wrote sort of in the 2020, 2021 era, and I was mostly wrote them during April, in fact, because April is National Poetry Month, and as it is right now, we're soaking in it. I usually write a poem a day in April, and someone, again, they always happen because someone else reaches out. I'm very bad at taking initiative, but someone had reached out from India, and he was like, "Hey, I read your poems, and I'm wondering if you might like to do a book of poetry with us." And I was like, "Well, I don't know that I'm not sure." I was unconvinced. Yeah. He was like, "Well, you wouldn't have to, it's not a scam. We're not trying to,
well, that's my
make
first
you
thought.
pay.
Yeah.
We'll pay you." And I was like, "Well, I don't even know if I feel right about that either."
Exactly.
So I said, "I'll tell you what. I will do the book, but I don't pay you anything, and the money that you would have paid me, we donate to COVID relief in India." And so I figured that way I'm not losing any money on the deal, but I also don't feel like I'm profiting from something that I'm not sure about.
Sure.
And I was just like, this will be the way to do it. And so he was like, all right. And so I put out this book, and it sold ones and ones of copies, and my poems are out there. And I mean, I had a few of my friends said they really liked it and said some nice things about it.
Yeah. Cool.
But yeah,
no, that's cool.
That was a fun one. Oh,
exactly.
So to answer where people can find me, which I know was like 5 minutes ago now, risingpun.com is my website, and that is where they can find me. It has links somewhere to my newsletter, which I have a free semi-monthly newsletter.
Yep.
Which is basically like a podcast in newsletter form, only without any guests.
Sure.
And probably not, as interesting as Mark's podcast. But it's me. It's called Parenthetical Digressions because I interrupt myself in parentheses all the time and just go off on tangents.
That's funny.
So.
Okay. And your Eagle column is again, you can find it in digital print.
Yeah, I don't. There's not like a convenient. I mean, I guess I try to. There's links to the Eagle column in the newsletter. There's links to the newsletter on the website. But yeah, if you're local in the Berkshires, look in the Berkshire Eagle every other Thursday ish for the Pun Also Rises.
Awesome.
And,
all right.
And thanks for reading and listening and existing in a way that's not deleterious to other human beings, ideally.
Absolutely.
No, thanks so much for having me on. Like I said, I've certainly listened to a number of episodes, and like I said, now that I'm not doing the stand up so much anymore, it is a delight to have this outlet and talk to a fellow comic and reminisce about the good old days and stuff we did together. Cool beans.
Cool, man. All right. Well, thanks
so much.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Yep.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the show, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.